travelers. I'm Kristen Cummings with Great West Vacation, here to talk to you in my very first travel podcast. And I want to thank you for taking a chance on me and listening to episode number 1. I'm sure that when I listen back to this in future years, I'll be mortified and it will be really cringy. But thanks for hanging in with me for the very first one. It's April 4th, 2020, and we are all pretty much globally shut down, locked down, stay-at-home orders because of the global COVID-19 pandemic. And, ironically, that is why, I finally made the time to do what I always said I was going to do. I want to start a podcast about travel. So here I am. Yes, being locked in the house with not a lot to do gave me the time and the ability to be creative that I wouldn't normally have. But oh my gosh, don't we all just know somebody right now starting a podcast because they're on lockdown? It's pretty funny. And yes, I'm that person. I am one of those people, absolutely. So, but, like I said, I've always wanted to do it. I just now finally have the time. And that's true for a lot of the things I'm getting done, like cleaning out under my bathroom sink. So anyway, so this episode, appropriately enough, we are going to be talking about what do travelers do during this period of time where we're actually not able to travel and we're not able to scratch that travel itch, so to speak, that in a way that we can normally. So I'm going to give you a bunch of ideas of what you can be doing while you're not traveling and still kind of fulfill that travel need. So first, though, because it is my first episode, I want to take a minute to tell you who I am and what I'm doing here and let you get to know me a little bit. So again, my name's Kristen. I live in northern Colorado. It's so gorgeous here. I really do love living here and feel lucky every day to do that. And being here means that I've gotten to live a very outdoorsy, active life. I like to do a lot of outdoor adventure things and backpacking, camping, mountain biking, that kind of thing. And I've always kind of sought after novel experiences that other people weren't having. So whenever I go travel someplace, I'm looking for the really hard to find things and the really unusual things, just to get away from tourists. Even though, I'm absolutely a tourist and I'm aware of this, I try not to be. I try to pretend like I'm not. And so, so I've spent all this time traveling, I did a lot of adventure-y kind of things, especially when I was younger and before I had kids. But then once I had kids, which, by the way, I've got 4 teenage boys. 3 are mine. They're ages 13 through 18. And then I have a 12-year-old bonus child through marriage. And they're all boys, by the way. I'm the only girl here. Not even the dog's a girl. But having such a big family, I was always looking for budget ways to travel. And we would do road trips and big camping trips. And we've done RV trips and we've done, pretty much everywhere that we can go with a car because we're a lot of people. So I've really gotten to know the Western United States and backwards and forward. And because we do go out so much, it's kind of become an art in finding new ways to experience the Western states that we haven't done yet. Because of my passion for getting off the beaten path and finding new things to do, people were always asking me, what should we go do when we're in Moab, Utah? Where should we eat when we are in New Mexico? What's your favorite campsite in Montana? And I just kind of became the go-to person for family and friends of cool, unique things to do and see in this area. So I decided, I think I really, I love travel more than anything. And wouldn't that be a nice business to get to plan people's trips for them? And, I love planning trips. I love itinerary creation. For me, traveling starts the day you start planning your trip, because you're already starting to picture yourself there. You're already making the plans and, getting all the ideas, and that research that goes into it is almost as fun as being there, but also it takes your 2-week trip and it turns it into maybe a 9-month trip because you're starting so early in the planning process. And if I'm not actually traveling, like I've always got to have that trip that I'm planning for, at least, to get excited about, to kind of keep me going until the next trip. So I have found that creating travel itineraries for other people is just as rewarding as creating my own. And in the research that I've done for other people, I've found new things that I want to go do, either with my husband or with my kids, or, all of the above. So that's why I started Great West Vacation. And now I'm just kind of taking the show on the road. Like, I want to reach you through podcasts, tell you about the cool things there are to do in the Western United States, tell you about the quirky little hidden gems of an Airbnb that you might not realize you can stay in, or tell you about really positive experiences I've had in just different communities, and just the things to do that you might not be on your radar, might be a little harder to find. And of course, share travel stories too from our family. Now that my kids are older, we're expanding. We're going out internationally now and getting, we don't need to be in driving distance of the things we do now. So we'll share with you like our travel stories as well. And hopefully you get some entertainment value out of it. For this particular episode numero uno, we're going to talk about what to do on COVID lockdown to deal with not being able to travel. And, I know every person has been impacted by this pandemic in some ways. Some have been severely impacted because they've lost a loved one, or they've become critically ill, or lost their job, or are about to lose their business. And, it's just every person's touched by it, right? And some people, I've got my oldest is a senior in high school, and for him, this has been super difficult. He's missing prom, he's missing yearbook signing, he's missing graduation and commencement, and this big scholarship award brunch, and all the things that he's been picturing and looking forward to, senior skip day and senior prank, all those things that you picture since you're a freshman, are gone for him now, and he's not even sure he'll get to say goodbye to his friends. And that's obviously minor compared to what's going on globally for a lot of people, but for him, that's all he has. That's everything, right? And I know we all have those things. And for me, it's travel. Travel is my everything. And I shouldn't say that, because I certainly spend this time worrying about, are my parents going to get it? Are they going to be healthy enough to pull through that? Or, is the economy going to be hit so hard that that my husband or I lose our job? I mean, obviously I'm worried about those things too, but in the more immediate, for me, like, I think about travel. And I had plans to spend spring break in Washington, D.C., and then because of the virus, we scaled back to a Colorado road trip to some really neat Airbnbs that I found. And we had to cancel that too, just because it wasn't socially responsible. The governor of Colorado was saying everybody just needs to stay home. Even if you're not sick, stay home, because you might be sick and then you're taking it to parts of the state that aren't sick. And we took that very seriously. We didn't want to be a part of the problem. We wanted to be a part of the solution. So we canceled that trip as well. And we've had a trip planned for about a year to return to Southeast Asia this summer in July, and going to Vietnam and Thailand. And, that trip is paid for, and that itinerary is super detailed and planned because I'm a planner. But yeah, it's looking really it's looking like it's not going to happen, right? I'm still hopeful. I'm still got my fingers crossed that, the surge ends and we start flattening the curve, but it might not. Might have to wait. Those countries will still be there next year or the year after. So, so if traveling can't happen right now, well, what can we do instead of traveling? So one thing that I like to do is I like to go through my old travel photos, pull them all up, go through them, relive your past travels. You can get those pictures organized. Sometimes we come back from vacation and everything is crazy and we're busy and we just don't have time to really sit down and, throw out the ones that we don't care about and fix up the ones we do, right? So now would be a good time to do that. I actually have recently taken this class. It's called the iPhone Photo Academy. And if I can ever figure out how to do show notes, I will put them in the show notes. How about that? That'll be my goal this week. Figure that out because, stay-at-home orders, it's all about personal growth. That'll be my growth for the week. But I'll put a link to it for you guys. But it's this class you take, and right now he's having a special. His name's Emil, and he's a pretty talented photographer, and he does all of his photography on the iPhone, and he shows you tips and tricks you didn't even know existed with your existing phone, and he does a lot of it on like a 5 or a 6, so you don't have to have like the fanciest iPhone, but he teaches you also about composition, how to frame your pictures, and I learned so much about photography from that online class. So highly recommend it. I actually just in this COVID special he's running right now, I bought for like 90% off. I bought not gonna lie, the prices are probably overinflated in the first place, and maybe he never charges full price, but it's a really good deal right now. And I bought his editing academy, and I took the sneak preview for the editing academy and was amazed by what you can do with just your iPhone, how the apps you can use to do these professional looking edits to make your pictures gorgeous. And it was just, he will have you download like one of his crappy pictures and then tell you exactly what edits to make, and bam, it's professional. I love it. And so then you're looking at all your own travel pictures and you're like, wow, my crappy pictures are actually salvageable and maybe even frameable. So yeah, obviously I'm not sponsored by this. I didn't have this guy approach me and say, I'd like to sponsor your one and only episode of your podcast. So this is like just for real, my opinion. This would be a great way to have growth, and you would take that with you on your future trips and take really great pictures. And then once you do go through your pictures and you edit the photos that you love from past trips, print them, get them framed, make a photo book. You can even make a video. Like, I do that after all of our trips. I take videos and, or I take videos and photos and, make a video and put it on YouTube or whatever for family to see. But, I think back to when I was a kid, we had one of those big 1980s camcorders that we made tons of home movies. And I'm so grateful we have all those movies from when I was a kid. Those big clunky camcorders that like sit on your shoulder. Like, it's hard to believe even technology has come so far that we use cell phones for that now. But yeah, so for my kids, these videos that I make of our photos from our trips and such, that's their home movies. And I'm glad they'll always have that, at least as long as YouTube is around. And then they won't. Anyway, that's the first thing I would do is I would play with your photos. The next thing that you could do is you could write about your past travels too. I don't know if you keep a travel journal. I always say that I'm going to, and then I'm just having too much fun and don't feel like writing while I'm there. But if you are a journaler and maybe you haven't filled in all those details yet, go back and do that before you forget, because the more time that goes by, the more you'll wish that you had, and the more of those details of the sights and the sounds that you'll lose. And if you enjoy blogging, put it out there in the universe for all of us to see, because I would really like to enjoy your trips as well. So get them out there and write it down. And then you could listen to travel podcasts, which if you're listening to this, that's what you're doing right now. I have been binge listening to a podcast called Passport Joy. It's fantastic. It's got this couple named Matt and Nikki Javitt, and they're probably late 30s, early 40s, I would guess, and they completely quit their careers. Granted, they don't have kids, so they had a little more freedom than someone like me does, but they quit their jobs and they traveled the world for 27 months. And in that amount of time, they went to 35 countries. And they talk about their budgeting process. They talk about how they were able to swing it, how they were able to exchange some stays for volunteer work, and, some of the Airbnbs they stayed in, and just how they were able to do it on a budget. And it's so inspiring, and, just makes me want to just quit my job and go travel the world for a while. I keep telling my husband, yes, let's do it. No, it's not reasonable for us right now, but maybe someday. But yeah, it's just really inspiring. It's not on Instagram. You see those young influencers that are just, they're going to Bali for a living. It's not like that. I appreciate that Matt and Nikki are like mature adults that are down to earth and appreciate the culture, and not saying those other people don't, but it's just what I kind of dig about it. So it's good. Have a listen if you are outside laying in your hammock wishing you were somewhere else. Maybe give Passport Joy a listen. Another thing you could do is you could read travel books. And in fact, I am taking recommendations. If you have a favorite travel book, please let me know what it is outside of guidebooks. I read a lot of guidebooks, but not really memoirs, which is what I would be more interested in. Just email me at info@greatwestvacation.com and tell me what books I should read. And when I say read, I mean Audible. I don't read. I listen really well. I'm a good listener. Just don't love the reading part of reading. So, another thing you could do is you could start a podcast just like me, just like everyone else is doing on lockdown. Do it, because I want to hear about your adventures too. So that's another creative option of ways to keep yourself busy on lockdown. And then, of course, there's always the opportunity to binge watch television shows. And there are great travel shows out there. And I will tell you some of my favorites, in no particular order. The first one is called Departures. And I don't know if you've seen it. It's a little tricky to find right now. It used to be on Netflix, and then it disappeared, and I was really sad. But supposedly, I follow those guys on Instagram, and supposedly they're back, but they're on Amazon Prime. However, I don't see it on there, and they're like, oh, shoot, it's for some reason just showing up in Canada on Amazon Prime, but everybody else keep checking because it's supposed to be global. So keep your eye out for Departures. It's these two guys, Scott Wilson and Justin Lukic. I hope I'm saying that right. But they are probably mid to late 20s, and Scott's like the guy you would always want to have with you when you're traveling to a foreign country for the first time. He's mature and down to earth and wise, and he speaks a lot of languages, and he would be a good travel buddy in that way. And then Justin's the opposite. He's kind of a dingbat. He's silly, he's fun, he's funny, he's never boring, but he's like a party animal, and he likes the ladies, and it's kind of fun. He's kind of immature, so they're a good balance for each other. He keeps Scott from taking himself too seriously, and Scott keeps Justin from getting them killed or whatever. So They're dynamic and their chemistry is really cool. And, you just kind of see Justin grow up a lot in the 2 seasons of the show where they're just traveling the world. And what I really like about it is they do that off the beaten path travel that I just so love and envy. And my favorite is when they go to Mongolia and they have to trek and horseback ride like 3 days to get to this tribe, this nomadic tribe that herd reindeer. And it's so isolated and peaceful. And they have these really neat, like, introspective scenes. And, these people drink reindeer milk and they live in teepees because they're nomadic. So they don't use those Mongolian yurts. But it's just great. And, I know that they don't, because they're making a movie, they probably have access to these authentic experiences that aren't really available to the rest of us. But boy, if I had a way to find that experience, I would do it in a heartbeat. And the cinematography of this show is just gorgeous. So that's my first favorite. And I said these were in no particular order, but I lied. That's my favorite. And the rest really are in no particular order. So the next one I'd recommend is called Dark Tourist, and it's on Netflix. And Dark Tourist has this guy, David Ferrier, I think is how you pronounce his last name. But he's a New Zealand journalist that is kind of nerdy, but he's witty, he's super smart. And, he's kind of that, like, he's probably in his late 20s, early 30s, but he's, like, never outgrew that teenage body, just kind of awkward like that. But he is so smart, and he goes and does the darkest things, not in like a reckless, careless, adrenaline junkie kind of way. He does them from a place of curiosity and to see what the appeal is. And so the countries he visits, he's just there to do like the most warped thing he can find, I guess you could say. So, as an example, he goes to Indonesia where when a loved one passes, they keep them in the house for like a year and they still visit them and bring them food. But they've embalmed them, so they're kind of mummified, and they just treat them like they're still alive and still in the family. And then after a year goes by, they go and they put them with all their other passed away relatives, and that's the time to dust off Granny and get your selfies taken with her and stuff. And it is so unusual, but at the same time endearing and charming in this, and that's their culture. That's what they do. And so he's doing things like that are just so different. But some of the things are dark. There's a episode in Africa that is doing like voodoo. And it's kind of like there's good voodoo and there's bad voodoo, apparently. And like, are you a good witch or a bad witch? And he goes to see both the good witch and the bad witch. And it's a little disturbing. But at the same time, I respect that he puts himself in these circumstances. There's times you can tell he's very uncomfortable, and there's times that you're worried about him. But what I love about him is in all these times, he's never shies away from asking the tough questions. And so that makes that show super interesting. Highly recommend it. So this is kind of silly. I love binge watching The Amazing Race. That's a CBS show. You can get it on CBS All Access, but also most of the seasons are available on Amazon Prime. So when I say you can binge this show, we're talking like something like 24 or 30 seasons worth of Amazon Prime. This could be a really long stay-at-home order that we have, so you might have time. But I'm sure most of it's reality game show where you race around the world with a partner for $1 million. And, who wouldn't want to go on that show, right? Like, my husband and I have talked about how fun that would be. I would even have fun going with my oldest. I think that would make for better television. My husband and I, we get along really well and we travel well together. But my oldest is trying to become an adult and I'm trying to be a mom. And I think there would be a lot of that good television there. maybe stuff we wouldn't want aired, but I think it would be entertaining probably. But no, we just, we kid about that, about how we would want to do that someday. I don't think that we really would want to if given the chance, but we like to pretend that we would. I also love Parts Unknown, Anthony Bourdain's show. He's cynical, but he's also really authentic with you about what he sees. He really takes the time to get to know the local people. I especially enjoy the episode where he's in the Philippines and you learn about how much they love Christmas, which I had no idea. And, but you also learn about the culture over there of sending their younger family members, like a younger adult family members to other Asian countries to make a living. And they send that money back to their family in the Philippines. And, at Christmas time, they send these huge care packages. And it was just surprising to see that, that they do that. It kind of reminded me of Mexico and the families that immigrate here to make money to send back home to Mexico. And they might not ever see their family down there again. But they're just trying to make a living for them. And kind of a similar dynamic, but really love that episode. So yeah, there's a lot of shows. I like Breakfast, Lunch, and Dinner with David Chang. It's more of a cooking foodie show, but his episode with Chrissy Teigen is hilarious because she's my girl. She's so sassy. I love her. And they're in Morocco, and I love traveling for the food, and I didn't know that Morocco would be like on my food list, but it is after watching that show. So that's on Netflix, Breakfast, Lunch, and Dinner. And, it's kind of silly and highly scripted, but Expedition Unknown is kind of a fun one. It's on Hulu, the Travel Channel, and Discovery, and short little episodes. The host, Josh Gates, is he's like a self-proclaimed Indiana Jones. He's like I think he's an archaeologist, but maybe he's just an entertainer. I don't know. But he comes off as an archaeologist of some sort, and he looks to solve the mysteries of the world and visiting far-off places. Like he goes to Cambodia and watches how they use mice, or rats, I should say, to remove landmines. And he goes on the bamboo railway that sometimes you see on TV, where you've got two flat trains, and it's like a form of transportation. And when the two trains come head to head, everybody hops up, picks up the train, removes all the pieces, and whoever got there first, gets to stay. Or I think it's whoever has the most people on their train doesn't have to move their train off the tracks and let the other one by. So things like that is kind of entertaining, but it is highly scripted. But you do get to see parts of like Machu Picchu and such that you wouldn't normally get to see. So that's just some fun TV shows that you can watch to help you kill time as well. That's my ideas for you. The other thing too, and I've already started doing this, is plan your next trip. If you're like me and you get joy out of building travel itineraries to the detail and planning and fantasizing about what your next trip looks like and creating a budget for that and finding a way to make that happen, just get started making your next trip. In February, when it was seeming like, wow, this virus is a big deal over in Asia. Maybe we're not going to be able to go to Asia this summer. Like, how naive we were, right? That Europe was going to end up being worse than Asia and the United States worse than them all. But at that time, I had to start thinking about, well, if they're not allowing travel in and out of China, or they're not allowing flights in Vietnam and Thailand to come from South Korea, and those are the two places you have to fly through to get there, we would have to go somewhere else. And so I started thinking about, well, where else would I like to go? And I put together a whole itinerary for going to Kathmandu, Nepal, and trekking to Namche Bazaar, which is like on the trek to the Everest Base Camp. So, and it's a little tiny village that you can only access on foot, but you can see Mount Everest. I just think that would be the coolest. And then hike back down and fly to Bhutan. And I just, was like, wow, this would be the coolest trip. This is our plan B. Put it all together. We're talking where we would stay, who our guide would be, where we would eat. That's the fun for me. I know that sounds not fun to some people, and I totally get it. And that's why Great West Vacation exists, is for people like you that don't want to do that. But if you do your plan B, do your next trip, get excited about it. You don't know when you're going to be able to take it, but at least you have it mapped out. And honestly, I'm almost more excited about this Nepal Bhutan trip than I am about the original Vietnam Thailand trip. So, might be a few years before I can get there, but that's another way to kill time. So anyway, thank you for listening. Those are my ideas for you. If you have ideas that I haven't hit, I am open to ideas. I'd love to hear them. I'd love to share them. You can reach me at info@greatwestvacation.com, and I want to hear those ideas, especially on books. And then let's see, on our next episode, actually bringing my son on because, we're homeschooling now, just like the rest of the country, at least, if not the world. And so he's also looking for creative things to do. But yeah, I'm bringing my son Ryan on. He's hysterical. And we're going to talk about where we were exactly 1 year ago, which was Thailand, and kind of a teenager's perspective of traveling to Thailand and just traveling internationally for the first time. So I think you'll get a kick out of that. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the trail.